I'm reading Dr. Jung's letter to Bernhard, dated June 1957. It appears beginning at page 375 of C.G. Jung Letters, Volume 2. Dr. Jung didn't mince any words. Here's what he says. I am sorry to say that everything men assert about God is twaddle, for no man can know God. Knowing means seeing a thing in such a way that all can know it, and for me, it means absolutely nothing if I profess a knowledge which I alone possess. Such people are found in the lunatic asylum. I therefore regard the proposition that belief is knowledge is absolutely misleading. What has really happened to these people is that they have been overpowered by an inner experience. They then make an interpretation which is as subjective as possible and believe it, instead of remaining true to the original experience. Take as an example our national saint, Nicholas van der Vloe. He sees an overwhelmingly terrifying face, which he involuntarily interprets as God, and then twiddles it around until it turns into the image of the Trinity, which still hangs in the church at Saxholm. This image has nothing to do with the original experience, but represents the summum bonum and divine love, which are miles away from God's Yahwistic terrors or the wrath fire of Bohm. Actually, after this vision, Nicholas should have preached, God is terrible, but he believed his own interpretation instead of the immediate experience. This is a typical phenomenon of belief, and one sees from it how such confessions of faith come about. Because this so-called knowledge is illegitimate, inner uncertainty makes it fanatical and generates missionary zeal, so that through the concurrence of the multitude, the subjective interpretation, precarious enough as it is, may not be shaken still further. But the certitude of inner experience generates greater certainty than the interpretation we have imposed upon it. Buber fails to see that when he says, my experience is God, he is interpreting it in such a way as to force everyone into believing his opinion, because he himself is uncertain. For confronted with the great mystery, no mortal man can aver that he has given a reliable interpretation, otherwise it would no longer be a mystery. It is only too plain to see that such people have no mysteries anymore, like those Oxfordites who think they can call up God on the telephone. When you ask me if I am a believer, I must answer no. I am loyal to my inner experience and have pistis in the Pauline sense. Footnote from Psychology and Religion, paragraph 9. Pistis, that is to say, truth or loyalty, faith and confidence in a certain experience of a numinous nature. The conversion of Paul is a striking example of this. Also 1 Corinthians 12:9, to another faith by the same Spirit, unquote. Continuing on with the sentence, but I do not presume to believe in my subjective interpretation, which would seem to me highly obnoxious when I consider my human brothers. I abhor the belief that I, or anybody else, could be in possession of an absolute truth. As I have said, I regard this unseemliness as a psychological mistake, a hidden inflation. If you have inner experiences, you are always in danger of identifying with them and imagining that you are specially favored, or a special species of man who possesses one organ more than others. I know only too well how difficult it is for people to stand off from their own experiences far enough to see the difference between the authentic experience and what they have made of it. For if they stood by it, they would reach very weighty conclusions which could severely shake their interpretation. Obviously, they want to avoid these consequences, and my critical psychology is therefore a thorn in their flesh. I also confirm that I regard all declarations of faith, which Buber, for instance, has in mind, as an object of psychological research, since they are subjective human statements about actual experiences whose real nature cannot be fathomed by man in any case. These experiences contain a real mystery, but the statements made about them don't. Thus it remained a real mystery to Brother Klaus what that terrifying countenance of God actually meant.